Welcome to the dungeon crawl.
I mean, yeah, that's hype. You only talk like that in the podcast, and people meet you real life, and they're like, "What?
Hey, what's up? What's going on, man? How you
Hey, how's
doing?
it going, guys?"
It's good to meet
Brian,
you.
your voice is a little different. What do you
That's
mean?
just just vibing, bro.
Oh,
Then we have like a panel live or something. What's going on, New York?
hey, and welcome to the Dungeon Crawl podcast. We're up here bright and early at 11:22 a.m. on this sweet and nice Sunday. Me and Ryan have planned our nice and pretty schedule. We've gotten here together today, so I'm just going to introduce myself. Braxton, we met last week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Ryan, if you would go ahead and introduce yourself as well. Ryan? Ryan? Hey. God, is he late again? Dude, why?
Sorry. We started already?
Yeah, we're supposed to start at 11, actually.
Right.
Yeah. What happened?
Did you not get my text?
No?
Well, you see, it's a crazy story, actually. I was driving this way, and then a cat, ran out in front of my car, and I had to stop, pull over, nurse it back to health. It was super hurt. It seemed like it was about to die or something. So I quickly had to drive it to the vet, and man, I was touch and go there for a minute. I was really worried. So I sent you a text, said, "Hey, I'm saving a cat's life," and then here I am. The cat's fine. Don't worry about it. Just gave it where it needs to be going.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Next time we'll just move it over to 12 so that you can do the cat saving beforehand, okay?
Sure, it happens quite a lot, actually. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, it does happen a lot, and you want to know where else it happens a lot in, surprisingly, but not so surprisingly, when planning for Dungeons and Dragons.
Nice segue.
I think you would know the most about that, especially considering you've been doing this for a bunch of college students, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I was one a few months
ago.
ago.
Always changing.
Yeah, and generally, not to discriminate against people who play games and are gamers, but we aren't the most on-time people.
Yeah.
So to speak.
It's hard enough to schedule, lunch with a buddy. Scheduling a day and a time for 4, 5, 6, 7 people to all get together for a couple hours is even harder.
Yeah, sometimes there's a ton of people in a group. That always freaks me out. I can handle maybe 4 max, and that alone, I don't even know how I'd be able to do it. Lately, with the 2 podcasts that we've been doing, especially for my group, we've had an interesting sort of dynamic going on. I do say I like to be a leader, but when it comes to scheduling, I think it's kind of an everybody thing, and they need to input their time. But with
I'd like
your
it to
group,
be that,
you always do that.
Yeah, just because I get super anxious, so it's mainly because of the first campaign where if I didn't message everybody ahead of time with a day and a time, then even if we had a routine that we'd meet every Saturday at 3 p.m. or every Sunday at 5 p.m., whatever, they'd message me an hour or 2 ahead of time, say, "Hey, I can't make it. I'm sorry." And then it's like, well, now I don't know what to do. I'm not, it can be tough. So I've had some bad experiences, which is why now just take the initial charge and message everyone. Usually, I'd like to do it like by Wednesday because we play every Saturday usually. So I'd like to do it by Wednesday just so I can know ahead of time. But like you were saying with college students and this day and age, you never know what's going to be happening with people's schedules. So I usually now just do about a day before.
Yeah, it's a good idea to do that. But for me, it's just we've gotten into a pretty good groove with our scheduling. I think what day and what time works out, and it's kind of weird how it works out. If you set this up and you get past the sort of rough start, generally people have kind of formed their schedule around where you've put things.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So if you've got 4 p.m. every day on a Saturday and it's grading at first, but people really value the campaign, they're more likely to just be always open during that time.
Yeah,
Though
it's important
it
to
can
find,
be tough.
Yeah, it's important to find the players that are going to care for that, who are interested enough to form their schedule around it. And I think as a schedulee, you want to try and choose the same day and time. Then you start getting into a routine of it, so everyone knows, hey, this time on this day we're playing D&D for a couple hours. That's what's going to happen. So you start bouncing around, then it can be really tough for people to plan their schedules around it.
Mm-hmm. And something I always forget about, especially when I started doing 2 sessions a week, when with you and one me being the DM, is it takes time. You're not just setting, hey, let's start doing Dungeons and Dragons nerd things at 4 p.m. on this weekend day, nice and sunny. But there's the time after that. It's not just that 1 minute. You've got to play for like 4 hours, and then I always realize by the time we've been playing for a bit, we've slayed the dragon, we've found the witch and saved the town, that it's 9-10 p.m. and I've got things that I need to do. So that's always tough. It
sounded like the beginning of a limerick there that you were doing. Sounded pretty cool.
I do have my limerick album. It's on SoundCloud if you guys want to check that out. Don't mean to plug it into this, but
channeling your inner bard there.
Inner bard. I've actually never played a bard before. I'm interested, but I can't sing, and maybe that would be an interesting thing. A bard with like really low charisma, it would be a hard time. It
would be fun. Because a lot of people, I think bards get bad rep because people use it as it's got the stereotype to seduce everything or to do all that stuff.
Really?
I think I don't know where it comes from. Probably just from players wanting to get crazy, get jiggy with it, get interested in some interesting topics, and so they'll start seducing things. I actually saw a post on the D&D Reddit while I was trying to search for some funny questions to ask. Asking or saying DM had mentioned that they hate bards because they seduce everything, and the player was like, "Oh, really? They can do that?" And so then they just started saying, "I want to seduce the Yeti. I want to seduce this fiend." Yeah.
Well, that's another interesting topic that I kind of want to branch off into is romance and D&D.
Romance.
So, I don't think it's ever really come up in our campaigns, but
I don't think so. Yeah.
What would you do?
I'm all for it. I mean, as long as we're not getting, gratuitous and getting inappropriate with it. But I'm okay. I mean, relationships happen in real life. Sex happens in real life. As long as we're not describing or rolling for the sex.
I mean, that's
activities.
Up to you.
I think I'm more than all right with stuff like that. I think I think we actually haven't dabbled into anything like that. But
no, we haven't.
I'm okay with relationships
that I'm like
and stuff.
Upset, but it's like it would essentially be one of the players, one of us talking to you as if we were dating.
Yeah, it could be interesting. Obviously, we'd have to be in a place long enough for NPCs to, start finding some.
There's love at first
qualities.
sight, Ryan. Sometimes it can just, bam, it happens right
and
away.
If you fall in love with an adventure, it's tough times, man.
But
like you fall in love with a touring musician.
You have to have good scheduling to get towards the good love times.
That's true.
That's the thing. But I guess I wanted to ask if there was a sort of ideal situation for scheduling that you've had, like a player that you just love dealing with, or I guess it would be talking about ourselves, and I'll realize that I've done something really shitty. But if you have a nightmare player that you just
you've done a pretty good job. I think the only time that I can think of was in the first campaign, and wasn't your fault. I think you were sick or something, but you let us know like an hour ahead of time or something. I mean, it wasn't your problem at all. I mean, things come up. But I haven't had any really bad nightmare players or anything. The biggest thing was at the end of the first campaign, which is kind of another reason why it started. Is we had players who would come in, play for like 2 sessions, and then their schedule would change and they had to leave, and so we just had a rotating cast of like guest guest players for about a month and a half or so, and eventually we're like, "Oh, let's just put it on a hiatus for a little bit." And then we just never came back to the campaign, which is
Yeah.
okay because now we've moved on to I think a much stronger campaign and group now.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing though is as a DM and even as a player, start taking note of. I mean, sometimes it's not just hey, I don't want to do this session or hey, I'm going to be late. Sometimes maybe the campaign isn't as interesting to them as you would like it to be. Whether you're putting in the effort or not is a different thing. Sometimes people just aren't interested in a certain campaign
Mm-hmm.
and they'll kind of wean off. And that's the world we live in right now where
Well,
people
they
just
got some
ghost.
personal things going on, and you don't know about.
And
Like,
yeah, that
what if
can definitely happen.
they just got broken up with, or someone in their family just died, is they're just not feeling up to different things. Who knows? So I think it's
Yeah.
important communication, just like in any relationship. Communication's key. Talk with your
Yeah.
player, talk with your DM, figure out what's going on, see what you can do to help,
Yeah,
etc.
always reach out. And I mean, for a lot of people, D&D can be therapy, but
Mm-hmm.
not that it should be your goal, but if you do notice that somebody's always kind of dodgy, you can take the time to say, "Hey, are you still interested in the campaign?" Because you don't want to waste anybody's time or make things difficult for people. Because the DM is putting a lot of effort into this, hopefully, to make the players enjoy their campaign and give them this world that they can live in, and B, the players want to play, and they can't do that if somebody's always missing. Um,
Players
my
want to
other
play.
group yeah, my other group really um, is particular on if somebody's not there, they don't want to meet because it leaves people out. I know our group, we do the opposite of that, where if somebody's out, we'll probably do a one shot or, they'll be autopiloted by
Mm-hmm.
another player or you'll autopilot them. It's
There's a
interesting
big
ways
reason
to go around it, yeah.
why I force, not force, but want us to continue playing. It's because again, similar to the first campaign I ran, is if you make it a habit to cancel every time someone can't make it, then it's kind of ruins it for everybody else who can make it, and it also can just start setting a habit that it's not super important that the
Yeah.
game is that the schedule is not super important, that if I'm not unable to make it, then we'll just cancel the entire week, we'll move it to next week. But if you go without that player, then they might feel left out, but then that'll make sure they don't want to miss anymore. They want to try to make sure and meet the next schedule because they want to be there for the game.
Yeah. That's a big concern. It's always a hard thing to figure out, and
Yeah, it's a
it's
tough
something that you
balance.
just need to address whenever a group starts is whether or not they are okay with continuing and understand that somebody might feel bad for being left out, or if you want to cancel the session altogether in order to keep that inclusion. I think people have different mindsets on it. I lean more with what you've just described, but I've got some players in the other campaign that I want to make sure I address what they want and what they enjoy because
Yeah,
they're the majority. And that's
I
just the
I
thing
don't
that
like
you need to focus on.
I've canceled a couple times recently, or not recently, but in this campaign because, or we haven't played the act, like we've done a one shot or something because there's something story wise that's going to be happening, something big that I want everybody there for. So
Yeah.
I'd say don't cancel unless there's specific circumstances. Then you can
Hmm.
obviously you do a one shot. Have a well we've had once have a player DM. You DM'd did a one shot for us. Try different things. Also give the DM a break sometimes. Yeah, let a
Yeah.
player do a one shot if you have to.
The big thing for me right now, and I mentioned it earlier, is just realizing how much time D&D takes.
It
It's
does.
crazy when you think about it. I mean, there are people that play maybe for 2 to 3 hours and they're good at that. But when I'm DMing, I think I make things drawn out, and I do need to work on it. But it's tough to look at time, and it's the same thing with video games. You can just lose the hours as it
Mm-hmm.
goes by. Um, I have work on Mondays, and the group that I have can really only meet at like 8 p.m. a lot of the time, and then I look at the clock after we finished a great session, and it's been fun, and it's 1 in the morning, and I still have to do
Yeah.
like making my lunch for tomorrow or getting this thing tied up this or there, and it can be rough, and there's some upkeep afterwards that DMs have to do. I know you always or maybe do the recap pretty much right after.
I don't anymore, actually.
Really?
I used to write. Yeah, I used to write up a recap. Is what he's referring to. But I haven't in a long time. I think I can actually see the last time I did one here was February, and it is
Oh,
July.
my DM has gotten lazy.
Well,
No, I mean I wouldn't
I've
even have
gotten better at
noticed.
keeping it in my head.
Yeah, especially if you were, not that you're railroading us again, but you are probably better at getting us to touch on a lot of the secrets and the events that you drop in, so you kind of know
Mhm.
what happens.
Well, sometimes I like now that I improv a little bit more. Obviously, I have some basic ideas, but I improv a little bit more than I used to, just because I think as a DM you get a little more comfortable with it, and you're more comfortable with getting a little crazy and letting your players go a little off track. Um, and what were we talking about? What was I gonna say?
That you're doing write ups.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So now sometimes it's a little like last session or the session before last session. There was kind of a travel moment, and so I forgot a lot of the things you guys had done, and so I was having you guys kind of fill in some of the details and some of the things.
Yeah, I
It's kind
like
of an
that idea.
intermission session.
I mean, this
Yeah,
the
I think
same thing
that's
happened for
important
me.
too because you can see the DM can then see what the players find important.
Yep. Sometimes nobody remembers, and you're just sitting there awkwardly.
I'm like, all right, well, moving on
It does
then.
happen. So I guess I'm curious as to. I mean, we've had to deal with this, but I don't think we've really taken too much action on it, other than the campaign fizzled out. Like, if somebody's just not working with the schedule, what would you do?
Like we said before, I'd try to talk to him first. I'd say, hey, I noticed you haven't been able to make X amount of sessions. Is something going on? Or are you doing okay? Is there anything we can do to help you out
Yeah,
and figure out what's going on? If they are unable to make it for a lot more, then we can write out their character for a while, or just have their character go off and do something else, and they won't return. But I definitely talk to them first and figure out what the underlying issue is, if there is one. I mean, sometimes their schedule just isn't able to line up anymore. They got a new
yeah.
job or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to balance that a lot right now. Oh man, I just had a question that came into my brain. So there's something in my mind that eats the thoughts as I have them. I'm
Sounds
starting
like
to
a
need.
good
It's
idea
kind.
for a
Somebody
D&D
told me that when I
monster.
was a kid. It's oh, hmm.
Something
Wait,
that
that did
crawls
happen.
into your brain and eats your
That kind of
thoughts.
happened, but
Kind
it's just
of.
a
I mean, there are
mind
things
flare.
that eat thoughts and minds. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've completely forgot what it was, and I don't know how to get back to it. And I really enjoyed it.
It might come back.
I don't
Brain.
know, man. Just like these players that lose their timing on the schedule, they kind of float away
They do. They
and
do.
never return. Especially since I've got video games on the mind. I'm thinking about the new Fire Emblem game that just came out, and right now I'm like, okay, I've got D&D at 4 with you, and
Uh,
in between that, we're gonna probably look at the podcast and edit it a little bit.
yeah,
I'm like,
Fire Emblem after
when
D
can
and
I play it?
D, and then I got
Yeah,
sleep, and
it's
some more
Saturday,
Fire
so we're
Emblem.
good. But I don't know, man. It's from a player perspective. I think we really expect the DM to kind of wrangle these rascals up, and
Yeah, I
it
think
can
that's
create
true.
toxicity in a sense. Um, but again, I think it's really important to notice it and recognize it. But even that can be tough.
Did you set up your group of players, or did someone else say, "Hey, I want to play D&D," and you were like, "Hey, I can DM."
I think they were all interested in it, and I probably was the person who'd played it the most. They'd had a group prior where the DM was just kind of mean to one of the
Oh,
players, where they would always exclude them. I think they were locked in some sort of situation for a bit, and the whole group just left, and they couldn't do anything. And every session
I
was
hate
just,
hearing the rough
yeah,
DM stories.
yeah, it's always painful. And I don't understand how people can do that, or why they even keep those people in their group if they're just going to treat them poorly. Not that
Yeah,
they deserve to be kicked out, but both parties should realize that, hey, this isn't working out. Let's cut it off. But they said, hey, we want to do it, and we were the five of us in a Discord chat, and I go, I mean, I've always wanted to DM, maybe, possibly, and that's kind of how it started. But from there, I think it took a long time for us to get a session in order, and I think it was last year when we set it up, and it was before I went to go study abroad. It was rough because I have a lot of difficulty committing to things, and I really, really need a push. I have to make sure I get a plan and schedule, or
Hmm.
else people are just going to say, hey, Braxton, when we're starting, and I'm like, oh, I don't have this ready, or it's not up to my standard. I think that's a tough thing for me, and I don't know if it is for you, possibly, but whenever I feel like I'm not prepared, I always want to postpone, and that's
Yes.
always tough.
I did that once. We were gonna have a session. I just feel like I just felt like I wasn't prepared as much as I would have liked to be. And so
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, well, I guess we're just gonna cancel unless someone wants a DM." And you're like, "Hey, I can give it a shot. I'll do a one shot."
I don't think I've ever once noticed a time if you ever didn't feel prepared in the sessions that we did do. There's, I mean, it always goes smoothly. It's like putting in a game and just playing it, and it works.
Honestly, last session, obviously, we don't have to go crazy in depth because we'll be explaining our whole game here. But
Yeah.
last session was interesting to me. One of my favorite sessions that we ever had, but at the same time, it was one of my least prepared sessions.
Hmm.
Which,
Last session?
yeah. See, sometimes the players don't even notice. Sometimes the players don't even notice.
I'm trying to remember what happened. All I remember is the end when you kept swapping the names around.
Oh, that drove me nuts. Because in my notes, I had their names flipped in one sentence that had their names set up, and the next sentence was flipped by accident. Somehow I got them mixed up, and so then I just kept mixing them up in game.
Yep.
But yeah, I had another kind of the party's currently traveling to this location, to this thing off in the distance, the miasma as we call it. And so it's kind of a travel-y, heading through some forests and stuff. And nowadays for forest travel, I kind of just have a couple different encounters prepared depending on roles and how things happen. And so I had just a couple ideas ready, and then I had this little encampment called Domir's Rest, just a little bit prepared, just kind of the basic idea. I had some names, and that's about it. And kind of we went crazy from there. Yes, I wasn't super prepared for it, but a lot of it was improv.
I mean, yeah, there was that one time we were in the bar in my campaign, and you called out to you pretty often want to talk to NPCs, which is that's great. Do that, awesome. But I never prepare people enough for how often you do it. And you had interacted with this character that I just made. Her name was Sarah, and I had checked out because you guys had been talking for a bit, and you
Yeah,
you went,
I remember.
Sarah,
Get her attention.
Sarah,
She was busy with her
Sa-"
food or something.
and then everybody's like, Braxton. I went, huh? What? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
So that
like
was always
as a
rough.
player, I like touching and playing with the world that the DM kind of makes. So I'll grab random NPC. I love when you guys do that in my game when you guys would just randomly say, "Is there someone around? Can I ask them a question?" I'm like, of
And you
course
go,
you
yeah,
can. There's always
yeah.
people there.
Except when there's not.
Except there's not. But then there's a
I'll test
reason
you.
there's not. There's probably something going on.
Yeah. Everybody's murdered and dead and being pulled into shadows.
So I think that's the. I hope not. So I think that's one of the tough things as a player and as a DM to describe this world. Let's say you're in a town, for example. As a DM, do you describe every single individual that's walking down the street? Because if you're in a big city, there's always people around. If you go to New York, there's always people walking around. But to put the players into this world, I think if you describe everybody, sure, it's very in depth and pretty cool and pretty interesting, but then it can also just bore the player because they
Yeah.
want to play in the world. They don't want to just hear and read about it. They want to get involved and do things. But if you don't describe everything, then it might not feel as tangible and as real.
Yeah, I was looking at one of those random town generators, and
Hmm.
it was giving me realistic numbers for how many people would be here, and it blew my mind away because you get, say, your players going to a massive trading hub of a town, and it's in this. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just a place where there would be hundreds of thousands of people. What do you do? You can't prepare 100,000 of people.
Yeah, that's why
You
I'm
can only
nervous
pick
when you guys head
important
to the
ones.
capital of the kingdom that you guys are in.
just gonna
So
talk to people every 2 seconds.
I've never done a big city in a game. You guys have yet to ever go to a big capital. The last campaign, you guys were headed, the party was headed to the big capital, so I'd started preparing it. This campaign, I've started doing that ahead of time because I know you guys want to go there at some point.
Some point.
Yeah, cities can be tough. I think the best thing to do is to kind of split them into districts, prepare certain buildings and certain things in those districts, prepare what type of culture is in those districts. So if the party's there and they find an NPC or talk to them, you just have a basic idea of what this individual will be like instead of preparing, going nuts. Because you could, in theory, go crazy for a
There are
big
people
city,
that do it.
but I feel like your brain might explode.
No, that stuff freaks me out right now. And when players get to a higher level as well, that scares me because I don't know how to balance fights, and I think that's a part where not having killing the other side as the only option is a big thing.
Yeah.
That you mentioned last time. Giving, maybe the building gets destroyed and everybody has to leave and the fight gets postponed and you meet up again later. But when players are like level 15, especially for that one shot I did, you guys have some crazy abilities, and I made your characters.
Yeah,
Or
I much
guess
prefer the higher levels because my favorite enemies are the higher level guys. So I really
You
want
should
to
level us up.
I want to make it slow, but at the same time, I want to get to some of these cool tough enemies. There's some crazy things out there, man.
Yeah, because there's only so much you can do when everybody has 5 HP all the time.
Yeah, there's only so many goblins you can kill, or so many gnolls and different things you can slay.
Well, think
Don't
about
get
it
me
this
wrong,
way.
orcs or gnolls are fun, but come on.
Yeah. Well, we've fought orcs and gnolls in everything that we've done that's Dungeons and Dragons or medieval or stuff like that. But if you think about it as when players are lower leveled, it's the opportunity to set the world. They can focus more on interacting with it rather than making an in-depth fight. So once you have the world under your belt and the players feel like they're in it, you can probably start working more on complex fights as they get to the higher levels. Unless you're a warlock, you can only cast 3 spells at high levels.
And you can start getting crazier with the world building as well, and the story. You can start small at the beginning with lower levels, and then start with small villages, saving the village, and then slowly get up to politics or big fights. Make the stakes a little higher. Some cults. You can get quite nutty with it.
So how do you figure that out in which direction that you're going? I guess it's really just creative freedom, but if the players are in an area where they're just kind of like, what do we do? What do you do as a DM?
Like if they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little last session, but I try to have small hooks for so many different places. Obviously, if you guys are still unsure where to go, then I can try to push you in a certain direction or have some NPCs come talk about it or just something to give you guys a little more information. Or if you guys decide to do nothing, just kind of hang out, I can bring something to this village, something that was going to happen. And then obviously your indecision will lead to bad things happening elsewhere or good things happening where you are, depending on, what you decide to do.
Yeah, we did touch on that. And it's just something that's always on my mind because the only times I'm taken out of a campaign is during that, when everybody's just, what do we do?
Yeah.
Where do we go? And
which sucks because it kind of has to happen, but at the same time,
you
just want it to get by quickly to figure out where you guys are headed.
Yeah, there are players I think that really enjoy that and they trust their DM a lot to say that, hey, I'm just going to start walking in this direction, just describe everything that's happening. And, I could do that. That's why I like being the player that always does things that are in front of them, the curious one, so to speak. I think it can be boring to be the player or the group that when a fight shows up, I mean, I guess your main goal is to survive and live. Yeah, so run away if you think it's too tough, but I've got to rework my brain to understand that that's a choice that people can make.
Yeah, I think as a player, it can be tough to remember that you don't have to fight to the death. In games, usually if I think we've talked this a little before, but in games you're given an encounter or a thing that you're more than likely able to take on. You can kill this thing. It's leveled to your level. most of the time, unless you're obviously in a tough area. But in D&D, it is and it isn't. I think at the same time, I think it's good for a DM to have. Obviously, don't try to kill your players constantly, but make the world feel grander by having things that players might necessarily not be able to kill at their level. There's some dangerous stuff out there that they are unable to do, especially if they're headed to a scary area, like they're headed into the dark, dangerous forest or something. They're at level 2. There's going to be some things there that they can't kill, and I think it's important to. I think as a DM, you need to broadcast it that these things are pretty dangerous before they get into a life or death situation.
Well, see, for me, all I see that as is flavor. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go fight him. let's do it.
Yeah, I've only done this a couple times, but the biggest was in a forest for my players, for you guys, and I described it multiple times by there was a pack of elves that were there who were just slaughtered by these creatures. One of the players saw it happen, just destruction. These elves didn't stand a chance. And there was just, you heard rumors that these things were pretty dangerous, pretty scary. And eventually you guys did get the cue to kind of get out of there. as you, I think one of the characters saw these creatures moving through the underbrush above you guys. Didn't necessarily notice you right away, but
now, Ryan forgets to mention to you that day I had arrived there earlier than everybody else. And just before we got into this conversation about how things are leveled to you in video games and, you can probably handle it. And I went, hey, Ryan, have you ever introduced a deadly encounter to us that we honestly aren't meant or capable of beating now? And you were like, well, I mean... yeah, you explain what you did now, and you try to give the cues, and then that happens, and I just look at him like, I swear.
Because I'm pretty sure the conversation came up organically. I don't think I brought it up or anything.
It did come up organically, which is why I was freaked out. But I mean, in Dungeons and Dragons, you're like, okay, yeah, there's a skeleton on the floor, and there's like 12 skeletons on the floor, and they are like basically stalking you in the trees. I'm like, okay, cool, that's flavor. Thanks for painting me a good word picture, Ryan. Didn't know I could probably frickin' die.
I have done that a couple times since. Less obvious though.
What?
Like you guys have seen? There was that time you guys saw the wyvern dragon thing off in the distance.
Oh yeah, I wanted to go do that.
Might have been okay, but definitely would have been more okay after it already fought these. But if you guys had went straight for it, it probably would have been a little rough. But you never know.
Yeah. Well, we did fight a shadow drake.
Yes, that thing you could fight though.
You're underestimating us. Me and my ice cube.
I think there you go. Yeah, your ice cube and your, I don't know, your other things.
Man,
your abilities.
Tome lock I always regret it. Being a warlock with a tome. Always. Having 42 cantrips is great. But there's gotta be a way to make them.
42 cantrips?
I have like 7.
Oh.
I was over exaggerating, but that's how it feels. And
I was like, my God, there's no way.
Like, Toll of the Dead is cool, and Shalala's awesome if you've got a stick to put it on, but there has to be a way to make it more interesting other than, hey, you can write down rituals in your book and then cast them for free. Why is that the only thing that they can do? Am I missing something? Okay, whoever's listening right now, just the dungeoncrawlpod@gmail.com. Just send me a cool build for Tome Warlocks because I don't think it exists. Unless you multi-class in something else. The dungeoncrawlpodcast.com. No, @gmail.com. Please send me a thing and tell me because I'm playing one right now. And it's cool sometimes.
I don't think there's I think it's just Dungeon Crawl Pod. The Dungeon Crawl Pod.
The Dungeon Crawl Pod @gmail.com. There you go. Do it, please, because I don't... I've looked up builds, and there's interesting things like the Coffee Warlock, but that's just game breaking.
What? Like, the Coffee Warlock? You open up a Starbucks shop, and you're a barista now?
I don't think... Have I not told you about that?
I don't think so.
So if I'm it's a game breaking thing. If I multi-classed into, I think it's one of the other classes that... Which one has sorcery points?
Sorcerer.
I've only played warlock, guys. Only played warlock. Um, if I do that with a mixture of the short rests that I can do,
Uh-huh.
there's a way for me to basically rack up an infinite amount of sorcery points
Interesting. Why is it called coffee?
because you take short rests rather than full rests, so you never sleep ever.
Oh, okay.
And there's a
But
different name for it, but it's weird. Hold on,
I
let
I
me.
I, I much prefer the idea of this guy who's pledged his allegiance to some dark fell beast and decides, you know what, this life isn't for me, and opens up a coffee shop and is over here shouting, I got your decaf here, I got your decaf, and he's just casting some spells and making some cool coffee. I like that idea much more.
Hold on, I'm looking this up. Where is it? This is very important because you're gonna coffee Sorlock.
That sounds like what you're describing.
Jeremy Crawford makes a ruling on the infamous coffee Sorlock. I
Oh, he
want to
made a
see.
ruling on
Like, it breaks the game.
it.
Whoa. Hold on.
Whoa.
He tweeted, DMs, if you allow multi-classing in your game and someone is tempted to abuse the combination of flexible casting and pack magic, remember this. One way to read the multi-class rules is your packed magic slots are useless for any non-warlock thing besides casting spells.
Mm.
No. Warlock/sorcerers using their lock slots to make sorcerer points use sorcerer points to make generic slots short rest repeat.
Yeah,
So
speaking
that's
of
how it
stuff like
works.
that he's tweeting, I've only ever had one kind of I don't know what the right term of it, like a power gamer, I guess. I try to make like the coolest player, the coolest not the coolest, like the most powerful kind of character.
Yeah.
I it's like for multi-classing in my game, I'm okay with it if it makes sense. That's basically how I am with a lot of things. If it makes sense, if you can make it make sense, sure, let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's go crazy with it. But I think it's important to find, obviously, again, we've said this before, find players that mesh well with your style. But for my style, I much prefer players that want to get involved with the story and tell cool adventure stories and whatnot.
Yeah.
So if they can make it make sense with their character, let's say they're I don't know, a rogue that wants to learn some spells. Of course, you can go arcane trickster, but say they want to go with a wizard or something. They can train under a wizard, and that's what, hey, they're multi-class and or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, when you multi-class, the second you get that extra level, you cannot be level 20 in something, can you? You can be level
No,
20 overall. Yeah,
unless
so
you guys
you're
unless you play much longer, obviously.
yeah. I
You
don't
can go
understand how you can
into
balance a game at level
epic
20.
level. There are some supplements that have been made for epic level characters, I think is what they're called.
But I feel like a lot of it's just going to be counter spells and stuff, just canceling what people do, and that sounds weird to me because I can
There's only one counter spell.
that is true, but if I can just say a word and you die, like what fun is that?
Doing a power word, the power
Yeah,
word stuff. Yeah, but I mean, you also have higher abilities, so the DC isn't as scary.
that's true, but it's I don't know. It freaks me out thinking about
But you also
the
have to
things
have
we can
100 hit
do.
points or fewer for power
And then
words as
there's a
well.
wish.
Wish is, I'm nervous for you guys to get there. Cause I'm have to learn Wish a little bit better, I think.
But like, why is that a thing?
Well, it has a possibility. It's kind of, I think it's a way for DMs to also mess with their players because you have to word things correctly. You got to make sure it's like you're with a genie, you got to make sure you're not getting screwed over in any way. So you have to specifically say, like, say, I wish, I don't know, I wish I wasn't thirsty anymore. Then you just dropped into an ocean or something, you get
Or you
teleported to an
just kill
ocean.
him.
Or you just kill him
If you're not
if you want
thirsty,
to
you're
get
dead.
crazy. That's true. See, you gotta be very specific. I think it's a very interesting spell. It can do some really cool things, but it's also, if you cast it once, there's a chance that you cannot cast it again, and it can also really like it hurts your stats for a couple days or something, makes you exhausted, I believe.
That's so ah. No, we need to do some brainstorming because Tome Lock, like I poop out a spell or two, and then I'm done. And I know I can rest at any moment, but it's just like I feel as though warlocks need to have a weapon. And that's why when I
Yes,
was
they do.
being, then you forget about that. When I was playing as my other character and I was a hexblade, ooh boy, was that fun. Hexblade
Yeah,
with
Hexblades are
like
fun.
sentinel and what was the other thing? Essentially, if you entered their area of attack or left it, you were getting hit. Or if you attacked their friend that was next to them, you were getting hit.
Oh
It was
yeah,
so
I know what
nice.
you're talking about.
I miss it so much, Ryan. I miss it oh so much.
Well, why didn't you do it again?
I I didn't think it was an option. I let the social pressure get to me. People were like, "Play something you never played before."
It's fun playing. It's fun playing other things.
Not Tome Lock.
It can be fun lore wise, I guess. That's
It-
about it.
yeah, that's the only thing that's keeping me from like changing is because it's been so built into the story.
Yeah, the answer important. I saw that. I mean, there's interesting because there's some spells that are built just for history and lore, but I don't know how many. I mean, I'm sure a lot of DMs do, but I mean, like let's say you're playing Adventures League and you have this spell. Is the DM gonna? I mean, I feel like it'd be a waste of a spell for you to cast. I want to learn more about this. The
Yeah,
DM would be like,
here you go.
sure, here it is. I'm pretty sure it's just called
Well,
lore or something. I don't know.
I could get into this like indefinitely, but the thing of the tome is that you can record rituals into it. Am I
Yeah.
missing something? Is there another thing? Like there's the sleepless one. I don't remember if that was just tome warlock, but I could not
I
sleep.
I know there's some specific invocations for
There's like
tome.
two.
Even in
One of
a
them is the ritual thing.
Zan
Yeah.
Xanathar.
The dungeon crawl pod at gmail.com. Send me a cool build for a tome warlock. I don't
Send
know
it.
if I don't you could be one person out there listening to this podcast. Send me information or help me convince Ryan to let me be a hexblade again. That
I'm
at
pretty
this
sure
point,
you switched
huh?
last time mid campaign, didn't you?
Yeah, but
I
this
remember
would
you
be
switched on you were on a hill, and I remember you switched. Your tome turned into something else, I believe.
so I now this is just turning into a me and Ryan session on like changing my character. That's another topic that we can talk briefly about right now. I don't think it could be an
Oh yeah,
entire
aspect
podcast,
of the
but
moon was a pact of the tome feature.
yeah, that's great and all, but it's not super useful.
Yeah.
It was fun for flavor, but I'm using one of two of the tome's abilities, and it
Yeah.
makes me sad. And I just picked up I picked up Shadow Blade, and I
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
cast like 42 things on it, and it takes 2 turns. And if I get hit and fail the concentration save, it's gone.
But once you get it all set up, it's pretty cool,
Once
man.
Ryan, once I get it all set up, it is equivalent to that one spell I can shoot darkness out of
Yeah,
my
and
head with.
the fight's over.
It does the same damage, and it has the darkness advantage as well. It's the same thing. It just does psychic damage.
Psychic's pretty good though.
Yeah, it is. But you know, it'd be cooler.
What?
A massive halberd that has sentinel and full arm mastery.
No, it's not that cool.
I don't know what you're talking about. I played a different campaign,
Wait,
Ryan,
so
and I went
you talking about Pact of the Blade? That's what you're interested in?
Hexblade.
Now that
It's in. Hmm?
yeah, Hexblade is the stuff in Xanathars is much cooler than the stuff in the player's handbook.
Yeah. They like. I just don't get tome luck. I don't. I don't understand it. I love my 7 cantrips. Believe you me. They get
Believe
6
in
when you
me.
start. Believe you me. But man, I just we'll have a chat because like
Okay, so this is what I was getting at. So your Pact of the Tome
yeah,
is a specific it's a pact boon.
yes,
Your
yeah,
Hexblade
I'd be a
is
blade and then hexblade.
no, Hexblade is
No,
an otherworldly. Yeah, you have the different packs. So Hexblade is would be an otherworldly patron. So technically, you're a great old one warlock, not a tome warlock. If that makes sense.
yes,
Yeah.
I'm a great old one, Tome Warlock.
Yes.
Yeah. And what we did last time is you homebrewed allowing the great old one to be one of the Blade Warlock's patrons.
Yeah, we tweaked a few things.
And we think similarly. I know there's a way we could swap it, but it would take a lot.
We can look into it. We'll try and figure something out here. I think, again, coming back to what we've been talking about, you want to make sure your players are having a good time.
I'm having a great time. It's just when I cast 2 spells and then I can't do anything, it makes me sad.
You just want to make sure they're enjoying their character, their abilities. Like you were talking about in the one shot, you noticed there was one player that didn't seem like they were enjoying their abilities.
Yeah.
And you're thinking for the next time that you guys continue the one shot, you would try to tweak that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
As a DM, there's a lot to juggle. One of them being making sure your players are having a fun time.
Yeah.
Checking. If they're not having a fun time, then try to engage them in some way. Try to do something.
Yeah.
Try to swap the spotlight. If the spotlight's on a different player, try to move it to them and get something they enjoy going on. And see those pearly whites popping out.
Yeah. No, I was pretty quiet last session, but it's just because everybody was chatting so much. Like,
yeah, there's a lot.
One
of
our
stuff
most
going on.
quiet players lately. He's been chatting up a storm. He even dropped some lore last session about his character. That makes me happy.
Yeah, that was good.
And none of this can really happen if you don't have good scheduling.
Because then you don't build the relationships. You don't build the story.
You don't even get there. Nothing happens.
You come back later and you don't know what happened.
Nope.
Boom.
Nothing. Takes you. Well, okay. Bi-weekly is a thing that you can do as well.
I think with that though, you can either decide to do longer sessions. Like I try to aim for like 4-ish hours, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't try not to go too long anymore because it's more stuff I gotta prepare. But B, I like, we talked about this a little bit before the podcast. I like finding a good stopping point. So let me cut you off there. He means cliffhanger. Yeah, that's a good stopping point. If you see a good stopping point, you could continue from, there's a cool moment happening. But if you stop there, it makes the players really excited to come back next week.
Well, I'd forgotten about it until you'd mentioned it just before we started this podcast. And I went, oh yeah, I was mad. He stopped it. Like, this woman had just given birth. She gave us her baby. I don't remember if she ran off or anything, but it's like this cult. Sorry to spoil it. It's not like you're going to get to see these episodes, but the leader of this cult essentially started walking out toward us because we broke one of his rules, and we were just like, oh, heck, something's going to happen.
Shuck.
And then Ryan goes, well, I guess we'll end it there.
I guess we'll pick up there next week.
And my ass over here on computer screen, not in person like the other 4 people are, couldn't do anything. If I was there, I would lock the door, sit people down. It's like, no, we're continuing.
We're gonna finish this now.
We'll finish this now. No, I probably wouldn't have done that, but that's how I felt. That's how I felt for sure. But I've used this podcast as a therapy session, Ryan. Tome Lock is boring.
That's what we're here for, man.
So I've got some cool ideas, and homebrew, and I think as we start getting the logistics out of the way in this podcast, we're gonna more dive into, and sorry to promise things for you guys that you won't see for a bit yet, but I think we're gonna want to get into more homebrewy stuff or resources that are outside of the player's handbook. Xanathar's is a lot of people's first experience with, though that is official material, first experience going outside of the player's handbook.
Yeah, a lot of people are worried about the hunter, the ranger class.
Why is that?
Doesn't do anything that the other classes can already do a little better. None of their stuff is very in depth unless you're exploring, jungles or certain areas. That's about it.
Interesting.
There's the revised ranger that people like a little bit better, but even still, it's not super great. But again, similar to Warlock, I think written down wise, I enjoy the lore and the things that can be made around a ranger, which is why I made one.
You picked a ranger.
Your campaign, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you were considering changing it.
Yeah, but I think it fits the character pretty good.
I like him.
He's
one of my favorite characters in the campaign.
So before we sign out for today,
yeah. Oh, what is this?
I would like you to go here Go to this website and roll
Me?
a D. Yes, no, the other person I'm saying
Oh,
this to.
I was like, what is happening? I don't know what's going on right now, guys. You're as blind and this is me.
And I want you to roll a D100
What?
twice.
Hold on. What is happening? When your DM says, "Hey, roll a D100," and nothing has prompted it, be scared. Where, what? Where's the D100? Okay, so I don't know if I have to. So okay, so there's two D100. Number one. Okay, so roll. Okay, so my first number out of 100 is 38.
38. Okay. Plain. Plain. Like a bunch of grass. All right.
Okay. 34.
34. So we're gonna make an item out of this. Okay.
What?
So, plane. A soul altering plane is what we get.
What?
All right. So how would you, as a DM, how would you bring a soul altering plane into your world?
That's pretty easy.
Okay.
I mean, you've already got otherworldly planes in the game, right?
Yeah, but it's not that kind of plane.
Plain?
Yeah.
So like plain, ordinary.
That or I was thinking of like a grass plane, like a plane where planes.
So altering plane. Maybe there was a war that had just taken place.
Ooh.
And there are just hordes and hordes of ghosts ridden with regret and
anguish.
Just anguish after the war they've fought. And if your player is somebody that can see those souls, perhaps passively it can change their view on the world at that time, or literally they get into a fight and perhaps an ability of these souls, these ghosts, can actually change your soul. In what ways, I'm not sure, but that's my thought.
All right, let's see what I get here. I like that. Let's see, 14 park. Okay, and 12. Okay, most boring thing ever. I mean, I could just go down.
I don't know. I got a plain soul altering.
Yeah, you got a soul altering plane. For mine, I could literally just in winter just walk down my street here, and I could get a cold park.
Cold, you can get.
I got a cold park here, so.
Hey, it's the first time we've done this. Got to keep it easy.
Yeah. So the players are out in the wilderness, and they come across a playground.
I see what you're doing.
A old playground of, it's been here for generations. And on this playground, they see children having the time of their life. Elven children, laughing, crying because they've fallen and they can't find their parents. And then the players walk forward and touch one of these amazing aquamarine slides. And it's cold to the touch. It's winter. It's winter time.
So I had no idea he was doing this, but I love it, and we should keep this. It's great.
It's a roll sheet that I found on D&D Behind the Screen Reddit page. Just says the guy said he made a roll sheet to create unique objects and entities for my stories. Made by _Crimson.
I think in the future, what we can do is, if we get some people and they like having dialogues with us online, we can ask everybody to do this as well, and maybe in an episode discussion they can roll their own thing, make a little write-up.
I like it.
Yeah.
And then I can bring it into my game.
That's called plagiarism.
And they could write my story for me.
Yes.
Perfect.
Wonderful. But we're running out of time here for this episode. So I guess, for us in like 3 days or something, I'm not sure math, on Tuesday, it is currently Saturday, we'll be uploading our first episode.
If you are a observant listener here, you've noticed that Braxton has now said today is Saturday and today is Sunday in this 1 hour-long podcast. So what day is it? We may never know.
We've been recording for 24 hours. Ryan keeps saying that was terrible and we have to cut it. It's been 2 days. It is Saturday. Have I actually said it's Sunday?
Yeah, I meant to say it earlier. The very beginning, you said that we're recording this on a Sunday.
It's Saturday. You'll edit that out, right?
For sure.
Right? Right? Oh god.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I guess this is when we sign off. I have been Braxton.
If you guys are just joining us for the first or the second time, please make sure you check us out on Twitter at Dungeon Crawl Pod. We're just getting the Twitter stuff started and going. And if you find us on iTunes, which hopefully at this point we should be on the old iTunes, make sure if you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you rate us 5 stars. It helps out a lot, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Leave us a little review. Say you like Braxton's hair. You can kind of see it.
Yes,
or you
in this
like
podcast of visual fidelity. You can
say,
see my hair.
type into your review, I like cold parks. Boom, there you go.
There you go. Or just tell us how much you hate us. That's how we learn.
But rate us 5 stars.
Yeah.
And then tell us how much you hate.
That's how it works.
That's how it works.
All right, Ryan. We've got some Dumb Rock stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
Goodbye.
Thanks for hanging, guys. See you next time.
Take care.